Good afternoon. During the declared emergency in the City of Toronto, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and a provincial order that limits attendance at public gatherings. This will be a virtual public hearing, and participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by their computer, a phone or tablet app, or by telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Any registered participants will be participating by audio only. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The committee considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that applies to property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision on an application must submit a written request for decision by email. Ensure you include your name, address, and email address, because Committee of Adjustment and the TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with our decision, it may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedure today is, I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant will proceed with their presentation if we require it. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you are reaching the 5 minutes. When addressing the committee, please state your name and address and confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will present the application to the committee first. Please note the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. If the application is substantially revised, the committee may decide to defer it to ensure the revised application is accurate and all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then, individuals in support of or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation. When all other speakers are finished, the applicant agent has an opportunity to rebut issues raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. any declarations of interest of panel or staff for items in this afternoon's time slots? Okay, no declarations. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, are there any deferral requests?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and panel members. There is a deferral request for item number 8 by the applicant. It's 1173 Dundas Street East, Unit 239. Revisions were made and a revised zoning notice was not submitted in time.
Okay, that's the only one? Okay, so perhaps we could deal with that one first. Okay, number 8, 1173 Dundas Street East, 239. Purpose of the application to alter the existing building by constructing a 4th-story addition and a rooftop deck to be accessed by Unit 239. Is Ms. Nugent on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, you're asking for a deferral?
Yes, please.
Okay, could you just explain to the panel why you're asking for a deferral?
So I guess the way this building works is we had to wait our turn for our unit to go. So we're unit 239, and I think the last one was unit 219 because it's a kind of totaling of the gross floor area for the whole building. So every time someone adds, you know, their own unit's rooftop deck, you have to add all their gross floor area with our gross floor area. So we had to wait our turn, and in between their hearing and our hearing, we couldn't get the revised zoning notice in time, and there was a minor conflict in getting the zoning notice and setting up the public notices in time.
Okay. All right, panel, do you have any questions? Okay. All right, do we have a motion? Yes, Peter?
I'm happy to bring forward a motion to defer. I think this is a reasonable request, and this will allow the applicant enough time to perfect the submission.
Do we have a seconder? Yes, here. All in favor of the deferral? You have your deferral. Thank you very much. We go back to number 152 Foxley Street. The purpose of this application is to alter the existing 2-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear basement walkout, a rear 2-story addition, and a full 3rd-story addition with a front balcony. A new 1-story laneway suite will also be constructed. With this application, we have materials submitted by the applicant, staff reports from engineering and urban forestry, 2 form letters in support. Mr. Galbraith?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Can we have your address, sir?
My name is Sean Galbraith. I'm a planner here on behalf of the application. My address is 1 Yonge Street, Unit 1801. The architect, Kyle O'Brien, is also on the line should there be any architecture questions.
Okay. I think you better, there's someone opposing this, Mr. Galbraith. Perhaps you could give us a brief presentation.
So the project is designed to largely maintain the existing footprint of the building. It will actually be a little bit shorter in the existing footprint. A partial 3rd floor addition is being added, and the 3rd floor includes a cutout in the front for an inset balcony and a 2nd balcony that will face the side street grove. Architecturally, it's a bold design by an award-winning architecture studio, but it maintains aspects of the existing form of the building. So the existing second story has a mansard roof, and the proposed roof lines maintain those existing mansard roof lines and just extend it up to a third floor on the front and on the side. Proposed is a new one-story laneway suite with a basement. No variances are required to facilitate the laneway suite. Parking will be removed from the site, and the curb cut that exists at the rear of the property on Grove will also be removed, so returning a parking space to public use in front of the side of the property. No trees are currently proposed to be removed. The intent is to maintain the tree that's in the rear yard to the extent possible. And the large public tree in the front is also designed to be retained. The arborist report supports this. That's basically it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Panel, do you have any questions of Mr. Galbraith? Okay, let's move on to Darnell Rubio.
Hi, my name's Darnell Rubio. I live on Foxley Street, 51A Foxley Street. Everything looks great. Love the design that was put out. My only concern that I have, and I guess my neighboring neighbors as well as we had conversation, was the removal of the parking pad. Currently, right now, I'm looking out my window. There's 3 vehicles on the parking pad. I do like the idea of laneway housing. I'm definitely in favor for that, but as a resident of Foxley Street and the neighboring area, it being Foxley Street and Grove Street, we've noticed in terms of parking in this general area to be extremely difficult, especially with Ossington and Dundas and all the restaurants there. As the residents here, we're just afraid of losing parking spaces for residential. Obviously, I don't know what the purpose of the housing is. It going to be rental or anything like that? Just by moving possible space for parking, which is already there, onto the road, it just makes it very difficult for the residents who need actually permit parking. We find it very difficult right now, and that's our only concern as residents. We've seen in the past with laneway housing, which has been approved in this area, on Argyle, Foxley, that if there is interest, that they've always built up from their garages or their parking pads, making it 2-story. I guess our only request, or if we can come to an agreement in terms of making parking available for these units. So we rarely see where residents want to lose parking space and put it on the road. So that's my only concern about that.
So we're going to ask Mr. Galbraith to address that, but Mr. Galbraith said the street's going to gain a parking place because they're doing away with the curb cut, but let him speak to this. Mr. Galbraith?
Thank you very much. You're correct. As I mentioned, the community will have a net increase of 1 parking space versus what is currently in the neighborhood. Unfortunately, due to the size of the property, a 2-story laneway suite with an integral garage at the base wouldn't be possible without some much larger variances for height and for separation distance from the main dwelling. And so, unfortunately, only a 1-story laneway suite is appropriate for the property. We think it's going to be a net benefit on the whole for the community. Certainly the owners would have preferred to maintain the parking space for themselves on the property. They have a car as well, but on the whole, this is, I think, a more positive development for the community. To the question of owner versus rental, the main house will be owner occupied, and the laneway suite will be a small rental unit.
Okay, so
I think that was all the questions.
the owner will have to find parking on the street?
Presumably, yes.
Yeah. Okay,
If parking permits, they'll have to get a parking permit.
all right. Panel, do you have any questions? Okay, yes, Larry?
If I could, I think, you know, we probably all agree this is a rather striking design and quite innovative. It is, however, on a row house. And I was just looking at your letters of support, Mr. Galbraith, and you've got, I think, 44 Foxley, but I just wondered whether you've had conversations with the neighbors.
We have.
In the row houses themselves.
Yeah, we spoke with the immediately attached neighbor. So first of all, we circulated our own notice ahead of the public notice with the renderings and a description of the project with an invitation to contact me if anybody had any questions or comments. 2 people did so. One person immediately north of us on Grove, who will be looking at us from the side, and I believe the person on the east side of Grove, who is also an architect. We had conversations with the attached neighbor, and they didn't want to sign a letter of support, but they're not opposed to the project. We appreciate that it is part of a row house, and so the architects have maintained sort of architectural cues and roofline slopes that to sort of extend the row house form into the front and the side of the building while creating a more a modern interpretation of that. And I note that the row house itself is not historically designated and it's not within a historic conservation district.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? All right, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll start, Chair, on this one. I actually do think it is quite a striking architectural development. I think it's quite attractive. It is interesting that it's kind of plunked on the end of a row house, and maybe everyone else along that row house will similarly think of something similar. But notwithstanding that, I think it's a good proposal, and I also like the fact that the laneway suite doesn't have any variances, and we always, as a panel, I think, appreciate when those kinds of applications do come in. Unless my colleagues have any additional thoughts, I think I'm happy to move a motion to approve this application. There are the standard engineering conditions and forestry condition number 2.
Do we have a seconder? Yes, Peter. All in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you. Number 2, 373 Manning Avenue, and the purpose of this application is to construct a 3-story semi-detached triplex and a rear 2-story laneway suite. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant to staff report from engineering and urban forestry, and opposition from 2 properties on Euclid, 1 on Manning, and from the Palmerston Area Residents Association. Mr. Bronskill.
Chair, can I just interject a little bit? There's a staff report from Heritage, I think, asking for deferral of this application. I wonder, should we just simply go right to that, or do you want to have a discussion on the merits of this application?
All right, so,
Mr. Chair, that's correct. Heritage Planning staff is requesting a deferral for 6 months to allow staff to research and evaluate the property for possible inclusion of the city's heritage register.
Okay. Let us just canvass the applicant and the opponents to see what their view is with respect to the deferral. Mr. Bronskill?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. We need
Thank you.
your input now just with respect to this heritage request for deferral.
Yes, sir. We're in receipt of that request. I'm going to say to the committee, we're actually a bit disappointed in the request. I won't say we're shocked, but we're very surprised. There has been extensive pre-consultation with staff leading up to the submission of the application. There have been discussions with city staff during the processing of the application and its scheduling for the committee. There had been no previous indication of any potential heritage significance for the property. When we look at the photos, sir, we're not sure why staff are now saying this. They haven't given us any indication as to why they're now seeking this. And 6 months, sir, is frankly a remarkable request for a deferral on a matter such as this, given how long this application has been reviewed and discussed with the city. It's a number of months now. We are strongly opposed, sir. If this is something Heritage would like to do, sir, then they should do it. But otherwise, we'd like to get on with the merits of a missing middle for rental unit proposal that's been extensively canvassed with city staff.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Reel? Okay. Susan Turner?
Yes.
All right, and we want your position with respect to deferral requested by Heritage. We're not dealing with the merits at this stage.
I'm in favor of it. I think that this property application potentially sets precedent for other properties in the area, and I would like to see Heritage render an opinion on it before moving ahead.
All right, thank you. Mr. Keene?
Hi, I'm one of the neighbors. I was here to talk about the variances, not the heritage application. I'm not sure why I've been put on microphone right now.
What's your name?
My name is Michael Keene. You just called on me?
Yeah, 371 Manning Avenue. While the issue has come up, Heritage has requested a deferral. So
Oh yeah, sure, defer it. That'd be great.
Okay, thank you. Frummy Diamond?
Hello?
Yes, we need your position with respect to a deferral requested by Heritage.
I would agree with the deferral, although I'm also here to speak on green issues concerning this property.
All right, well, we're not there yet, so we'll get back to you. David E. Pulley-Blank?
Thank you. I think it's important to note that this is actually one of 4 properties which are probably going to be developed by the same developers. The property immediately to the north, 375, has just appeared on the city's website as having a proposal that is essentially identical to that of 373. And therefore, there are major issues to be considered by not only the neighborhood, but by the city as a whole. And I therefore request that the matter be deferred.
All right, thank you. Ms. Gutierrez?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We need your position with respect to the Heritage's request for a deferral.
The tenants at 373, 375, 377, and 379 Manning would also agree to deferral.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hamill? Mr. Merritt. Mr. Noel Merritt?
Hi, I'm a resident of 379 Manning, and I would also agree with the deferral.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's see if we can get Mr. Hamill. Get him. Okay. So, Mr. Bronskill, I just want to have you address one issue.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Yeah, I think it was Mr. Bullyblank who raised the issue that somebody is developing 4 houses on Manning, close together, I assume. And so he feels that the issue is bigger than this particular house and that it's therefore not unreasonable for Heritage to ask for a deferral. What do you say to that?
Sir, Heritage have not asked for a deferral to study anything more than this house. So I'm not sure that the other properties are of any relevance to the question as to whether this property would ultimately be deemed to have heritage significance. If they want to study those ones, sir, of course they can. There's a separate Ontario Heritage Act process for that, as you well know, with different appeal rights now under the Ontario Heritage Act as well. But the memo is very clear. It's not looking at anything beyond this property in terms of whether there is significance from a heritage perspective or not. So,
okay, thank you.
Sir, I would just return to my earlier point. They're asking about this property. They're asking to wait 6 months, and they've had months already to do their work. So I don't think it's a fair or reasonable request. And sir, I don't think anyone who is lined up to speak has indicated they have a heritage issue. They're all agreeing to the deferral because they have other concerns, which we should air in front of you, but none of them have indicated that they believe there's heritage significance to the property.
Okay, when was your application put in?
I'd have to go back, sir, and get the exact date from the website, which I'm prepared to do, but it's been, sir, with the city for months, which also includes pre-application consultation with city staff prior to submission of the application.
Okay, all right, let me go. Panel, do you have any questions? Do you have any comments with respect to the deferral?
I'll start. I'm sure others have comments. I must say, I sympathize with the applicant. I mean, process in the planning system can be very frustrating sometimes, and totally get that. But my own view would be that there have been a few very high-profile cases where properties have been listed as possible heritage designations before they were considered and torn down prior to that designation, and those are very controversial. And I think would be wise to err on the side of caution and allow Heritage to determine whether in fact there is any historical significance prior to considering the application. If there is, then the application will likely change. At the same time, this gives the applicant a bit of an opportunity to have further discussions with the neighbors that are concerned, and perhaps even address some or all of those concerns. So I'm in favor of deferral.
So are you in favor of a 6-month deferral?
Well, I'm not sure of, defer to you and staff in terms of your experience in this. I don't know if that's a inordinately long period of time or not. Maybe can we stipulate a shorter period of time if we so thought?
I think so. Yep, is that here?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to weigh in as well. I certainly concur with Larry on this one. In terms of the time, the deferral time instead of 6 months, something else. If that 6 months is a request from Heritage, I would prefer to recommend that we go with the 6 months because they would have a better idea of what they're able to do and when they're able to do it. If we impose a three-month limit or a 4-month limit, it may create problems for Heritage, and we may not get the appropriate kind of response that we hope come about it. But I agree with my colleague Larry that heritage, especially in the city of Toronto, we see so much of our heritage disappearing so rapidly. I think I'd rather err on the side of caution. So I'd be very happy to second his motion.
All right, but he hasn't made a motion yet. Peter?
Peter?
Yeah, the theoretical motion. I agree with both my colleagues here. I think it is unfortunate that this request from Heritage has come in so late, and I wish that that would have happened earlier in the process. But I think what Larry said in terms of this also giving the applicant some time to canvass the neighbors and help kind of take care of some of those other concerns, I think it could be a positive benefit. So yeah, I'd support the deferral request as well.
Okay, my position is that we've seen a lot of these last minute deferral requests by Heritage, and I find that it pays no attention to the owner and whether the owner's a developer or a private person dealing with their own house. They've got money at stake here, and this application didn't start yesterday. It started a long time ago, and Heritage had an opportunity to put in their request a long time ago. And so I'm generally opposed to these applications. I understand what Larry's saying, and I don't disagree with what you're all saying, but I find these rather irksome, the way Heritage arrogantly comes in at the last minute and asks for a deferral. But in any event, Larry, would you make a motion?
Yeah, and maybe as a bit of a compromise that we could make a motion. I'm happy to make a motion to defer this application. However, Heritage staff undertake to address this property as quickly as possible and no later than 6 months in the future. I don't know if that will help a little bit. I think if we picked a number, anything other than 6, it'd be pure arbitrary. And I don't have confidence in my ability to pick a date. So I would maybe just, make the motion to encourage Heritage staff to deal with this as quickly as they can.
All right, do we have a seconder? Yes, here. Okay, all in favor of the motion? I'm going to abstain. All right, thank you. The application is deferred. Number 3, 47 Ossington Avenue. The purpose of this application is to alter the 3-story mixed-use building by constructing a rear 3-story addition and by converting the main floor office space into a restaurant. The 2 dwelling units located on the 2nd and 3rd floors will be maintained. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant and email correspondence from transportation and 2 email correspondences from transportation. Mr. Zabzuni.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Marin Zabzuni at 1140 the Queensway.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, may I interrupt? There is also one photograph that was submitted, and there is a memo from Heritage Planning staff requesting a condition. The condition reads, prior to the issuance of a building permit drawings, including plans, elevations, and details, shall be submitted to the satisfaction of the senior manager of Heritage Planning. We did just receive this memo this morning.
Okay, and the photograph? Was that a supplementary material?
Actually, sorry, that's for the next item. I
Okay.
apologize.
Thank you. All right.
Chair, could I ask a technical question
Yes.
before we? I'm just looking at variance number 1, and maybe I'm reading it incorrectly, but it says the maximum permitted floor space for all residential uses on the lot is 1.5 times the area. But then the actual is floor space index for all residential uses on the lot is equal to 0.47. So I'm wondering why they need a variance for that. Am I reading that incorrectly, or?
Well, that's
just
the way,
doesn't look like-
that's the way I read it, Larry, so I have a question mark as to why it's there. Perhaps you could help us, Sabrina.
If you just give me a moment, I'm going to look that up right now.
Okay. Mr. Zabzuni, can you give us any enlightenment as to why variance number 1 is there?
Yes, initially it was slightly higher. We went in for a revision, a revised notice, and honestly, I believe it's just a minor error from the zoning examiner. I do not believe we need this variance now that we're under. I think it's just a typo error, and you can probably amend that.
Somebody forgot to delete it, is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, I have looked up the zoning certificate that is on file, and it is dated April the 20th, 2021. And the variance is listed here as it's shown on the notice that went out, and it does appear that this wouldn't be required.
Right. Thank you. So, Mr. Sabzuni, I don't believe we need a presentation from you. Do you have any further comments to make before we go into committee?
No, we worked closely with city planning to bring the drawings to what you see here today, and I believe it's a good fit for the area. It's common based on other approvals in the area, and I believe it meets the 4 tests. If you have any questions, please let me know.
All right, thank you. Panel, any questions? Yes, Peter?
Thank you. Just one question of the applicant to make sure that you've been made aware of the heritage condition that they've proposed.
Yeah, so this is the first time I'm hearing of it. I guess because it came this morning, but it doesn't sound like it's an issue to comply or meet that condition. So we're happy to agree with that condition and submit whatever's needed during the permit process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Is that here? No. Do we have a motion?
If nobody else has any comments, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to bring forward a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to move that we accept the application as presented with the amended variance number 1 no longer being required and heritage condition as stipulated.
All right. Do we have a seconder? Peter? Thank you. All in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you. Next item is number 4, 133 Balsam Avenue. The purpose of this application is to alter the 2-story detached dwelling by constructing a 1-story addition along the rear and east side and a 3rd floor dormer. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. We have email correspondence from Heritage Preservation and a report from Urban Forestry. We have support from 2 properties on Pine Crescent and 1 property on Balsam Avenue. Mr. Pitrapov?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and panel members. My name is James Pitrapov. I am the architect. My firm is Lakeside Architecture, Inc. Our address is 2255B Queen Street East in the city of Toronto, postal code M4E1G3.
Mr. Petripov, I don't think we need a presentation in this matter, but if you have anything you want to tell us before we go into committee, we'd be pleased to hear from you.
Sure. Just briefly, Mr. Chair, we worked closely with the owner and with consideration to the neighbors to develop a modest scale addition and renovation that is primarily within the footprint of the existing building. The proposed addition barely covers 3 or 4 sheets of plywood in the area, and it's screened from the street by vegetation. We think it supports the existing streetscape, and we work hard to maintain the character of the building, and it have the support and approval of Heritage. So we feel quite confident that we've done the right thing for the neighbors and the streetscape as well.
All right, thank you. Panel, do you have any questions?
Just a quick one. I'm just looking at variance number 2. I assume that's an existing condition, is setback from this north lot line?
Yeah, that's correct. And the interesting thing is that when the building was originally built, there was a mudroom there. There was originally a structure there which was taken down years ago, and I believe that the neighbor to the north might even recollect that structure. But the proposal is to build over original footprint, and the only ones that would be able to even see it or would recognize that location is that neighbor to the north, and he's the one that provided that first letter of support.
Thank you. Any further questions, or do we have a motion? Peter?
I'm happy to bring a motion for this. I think the only variance that was large was mentioned by Larry, and I think that is partly due to the fact that it's a bit of an irregular lotting pattern in the area. I think this proposal is modest and benign and is desirable for the neighborhood. So I move approval, subject to the urban forestry condition number 2.
Seconder, Larry, all in favor? So here, you have your approval, sir. Thank you. Number 5, 221 Roxton Road. The purpose of this application is to construct a semi-detached mixed-use building containing 1 commercial unit and 3 residential units with a front second-story balcony. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, reports from planning and urban forestry, opposition from properties on College Street. All right, Mehdi Ajvan.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if I could just chime in. Community planning staff is requesting a deferral because this is a premature. The site is subject to site plan control, which has not yet been submitted.
Okay. Mr. Ajvan, do you want to address, we'll deal with the issue of deferral first.
Yes, sir. We are okay with complying with the deferral, although it's unfortunate we submitted our application on January, and on the very last moment we received this feedback, this report from the planning department, but it seems we don't have any other option, so we are okay with deferring the case.
All right, thank you. Ms. Farfolden.
Yes, hello. I have no objections to this matter being deferred.
Okay, thank you. Panel, do you have any questions? Peter?
No questions. I just wanted to make a comment that I know this site well. I think we've all passed it on College Street, and it's been derelict for at least 10, 15 years. And so I'm kind of, I'm disappointed in the planning request for a deferral. I mean, I understand it, but I think the application as it stands is very good. So I think just give some support to the applicant that hopefully they can get planning on board sooner than later. But I think this looks like a good application.
Okay, are you making a motion for deferral?
Sure, I'll move a motion to defer the application.
All right, the usual time, 3 months or so?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
A seconder, Sahir. All in favor of the deferral? Have your deferral. Thank you, sir. Number 6, 248A Euclid Avenue. Purpose of this application is to alter the existing rear one-story semi-detached garage by constructing a full second-story addition for storage use at the rear of the existing 2.5-story semi-detached dwelling. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant and email correspondence from planning. Nilofar Sultani.
Yes, sir. Hi.
Hi. Could we have your address?
Yes. Hi, my name is Nilofar Sultani. I'm the agent and the designer from KH Davis Engineering, 1468 Danforth Avenue, Toronto, Ontario.
Okay. I don't believe we need a presentation by you. Did you have anything to say to the panel before we go into committee?
No, I'm just happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you. Panel, do you have questions? Sahir?
Just one quick one. I was just looking at the correspondence from planning, and basically it says planning doesn't support the application in its current form. It's talking about the storage structure being over 4 meters. If you consider converting it into a laneway, we can take a second look. Please revise the application. Are you aware of this correspondence, and is there anything being done about it?
Yes, I've talked to the homeowner about this, and this is not the intent of this application. The homeowner right now has in his basement a secondary suite, and he just needs extra storage. So I don't understand why converting it to a laneway would resolve anything. I understand it's a problem of intent, but honestly, it's like saying, oh, you can't use your basement unless it's a unit. So I don't understand the logic of that, and the homeowner doesn't want to incur the extra cost of turning it into a unit. He just wants an extra space for himself. That's all.
Okay, so your client wasn't prepared to make a change?
No.
Okay, thank you.
It is, Chair, it is a little unusual looking at the elevation, the design of the garage with a Juliet balcony. It does sort of, almost doesn't really look, at least from the outside, like it's storage. It kind of looks like it might be suitable sometime down the road for habitable use. So I'm just curious about the design for a second story, which is primarily storage, having a Juliet and a balcony.
He just wanted this extra space for himself, so he did want the hedgeroom, but I don't know, he kind of liked the Juliet balcony. There's no intention of turning this into a unit, and if that causes a problem, we can just change it to a window. So.
Well, I think probably the more important issue is the height. So I think we'll have to chat about that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Larry, do you want to comment on the height?
Yeah, again, it strikes me, I mean, we do have provisions for laneway suites, and frankly, the height of this structure, if it was a laneway suite, I think would probably conform. So, and that's council's intent, is to try and provide more accommodation and more rental accommodation in these kind of sites. So I know it is a bit of an issue. There isn't any opposition to this one, as far as I can tell. But on the other hand, it's a significant height differential from what's permitted for a garage from what they're asking. So if it was laneway suite, it would be subject to a whole bunch of other provisions that we would probably appreciate. It's not, and I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the application given the degree to which it exceeds, and I'm not sure that it isn't eventually designed to do for habitable use, regardless.
Yeah, I notice also variance number 4, 2 stories height in an ancillary building is not permitted either. We're being asked to give permission to have 2 stories. So that goes in with the height as well. All right, any other comments? Peter?
Sure. I don't share the concerns that Larry's raised about the height. I mean, I think there are other examples of laneway, of garages or former warehouses or whatever they are, in that laneway that are taller. But I do agree that it kind of looks like a laneway suite. So I'd be willing to add a condition that the ancillary building not be used for habitable space or something like that, if that would give any comfort.
So would that, Peter, would that affect a future application if we say that? Maybe you want to qualify it by saying until unless an application is made for laneway suite or something to that effect.
Sure. I mean, I'm not sure the technical side, and maybe staff could help with that, but I know we've put that condition in the past, when there has been, when it's looked like these could kind of evolve naturally into a unit.
Okay. So did you make a motion, Peter? I sort of got lost there. We can't hear you.
Pardon me. I didn't make a motion, but unless Zahir, do you have something to add, or?
My concern would be that at this point, planning has sort of suggested, look, this isn't quite okay. Why don't you revise your plans? My thinking is that in the future, should the applicant decide to turn it into a habitable space, doesn't it make any more sense for the applicant right now to simply say, this is the variance I want because we may in the future turn it into a habitable space so that it becomes fait accompli at this point, rather than for us having to go into the process of setting conditions and then later on something changes for the applicant. I think the applicant would be quite wise to just request an application that includes turning this space into a habitable unit. So that's my thought on it.
Yeah, but there's a big difference, say here, between adding a second story to a garage for storage and building a laneway suite. Laneway suites are expensive. It's apparently not his plan at this time. So I think we should consider the application on its on whether we're satisfied with the height for a garage and storage, and not deal with the laneway suite. Yes, Larry?
So my observation would be that, when council deliberated and decided on allowing 2 stories for laneway suites, they were doing it, I think, with the idea that the trade-off would be you're introducing additional rental accommodation and rental space into existing neighborhoods. So that was the trade-off for allowing higher buildings. Notwithstanding, I think Peter, absolutely right. There are probably grandfathered buildings in there that are higher. But council, in doing that, didn't change the height restrictions for garages at large. And this is simply a garage at large with additional storing. So there's no trade-off benefit for that height, I don't think, in my view, to the neighborhood or the community of the neighbor. So I'm kind of the view that, you know, we shouldn't be allowing height differentials of that magnitude if it's just going to be for storage.
Okay, so do we have a motion, one way or another?
I think, sounds like we have 3 different motions coming, but I'll go ahead and do one, and then people can vote accordingly. So I would vote to approve this application as it stands, with one condition, that the ancillary building not be used for habitable space.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
I'd be prepared to second that motion because I think there's a stipulation that's important.
Okay, all in favor of the motion? All opposed? Okay, 3 to 1, you have your approval, thank you. Number 7. 1001 Queen Street West, purpose of the application to alter the development plan for the 7-story mixed-use hospital building and associated blocks by reducing the total provided parking for the site and by altering the hospital building's height and building envelope. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant and a report from planning. Ms. McDougall.
Good afternoon. I'm pleased to be here representing CAMH with respect to this important mid-rise research building for the campus. And I have a number of folks with me to answer any questions you have, including representatives of CAMH, Janet Winnie, who's the Director of Community Engagement, the project architect from KPMG, Mitchell Hall, Tom Little, Consulting, and Eric Turcott, who provided the urban design report from USI. We also submitted a presentation with graphics, and so I'm in your hands whether you want me to address the 4 variances. I'm not sure whether there's anyone who's speaking other than I am speaking.
Panel? Okay, I don't think we need a presentation, Ms. McDougall.
With that, I would indicate that CAMH does support the proposed condition by the planning department with respect to one of the variances, and we believe it meets the 4 test, and we're here to answer any questions you have if you've had an opportunity to review the material.
All right, thank you. Panel, do you have any questions? Okay, do we have a motion or comments?
I'll start here. I think this is very straightforward. It's an institutional use. Planning staff have been working very closely with the applicant to ensure that the proposal makes sense, and I don't think there's any abject impact on the surrounding neighborhood. In fact, allowing these kinds of things in hospitals are a good thing. So I'm prepared to make a motion to approve this application subject to planning staff conditions outlined in the memo dated August 10th.
Do we have a seconder? Sahir, all in favor? You have your approval, Ms. McDougall. Thank you very much. Number 8 has been deferred. Number 9, 53 Cavell Avenue. The purpose of this application to alter the existing 2-story semi-detached building by constructing a 2-story front addition, a new front porch, and a new front yard basement walkout. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant only. Mr. Espinoza?
Very good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Nelson, and I'm here as the agent for this application.
Okay. You better give us a brief presentation, sir. There's some opposition, somebody speaking in opposition.
Basically, as you can see from the plan submitted, we're asking for a two-story front addition to give my client a bit more room in terms of a third bedroom addition up on the second floor and a bit more of a spacious living room at the front. It is a small house presently, and we're trying to, get a bit more room for our client.
Okay. All right, panel, any questions? No, okay. Let's move on to Ms. Lombardo.
Hi, Charlotte. You've been unmuted. You might have to unmute your phone on your end.
Did she answer? Oh. Ms. Lombardo, are you there? Did you just call? Okay. So did she answer, or you did? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, well, we thought we did contact her. Pardon? Okay. Because otherwise we'll just move on. Okay, no answer. Panel, do you have any questions of Mr. Espinola, or do we have comments, or Peter?
Yeah, I have one question. Because I understand it's a slightly strange lotting pattern in the area, and these houses are set back farther than the majority of the other houses. But I'm wondering if the applicant has spoken to the next door attached neighbor at 51, because I think that would be the most impacted house in terms of it really being kind of wedged between two houses that come much more prominently out to the street.
That was, just before you speak, Mr. Espinola, that person had registered to speak, but we can't get a hold of her. So, Mr. Espinola, did you have any contact with 51?
Yes, it is my understanding that next door neighbor at number 51 Cabell Avenue has been in contact with the general contractor who is going to be building this addition to do something similar in the future. Probably not a two-story, but a one-story front addition to their house as well.
So they haven't expressed any opposition?
No, they have not, no.
Okay.
Just related to Peter's question, so the extent to which the front addition will push out the front, Peter's right, the lot fabric along there is quite unique. So would your addition, how far out would it come? Would it line up, for example, with 49 or it wouldn't go out that far?
Let me just have a quick look at my key plan here. No, it won't go that far, no. It's going to be much farther back.
Yeah, okay.
Number 49 goes pretty much very close to where the front property line is. And
Yeah, sort of, looks like many of the houses on that street are right aligned with that spot.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions? Or do we have comments or a motion? Peter?
So is there any chance we can hear from the neighbor at 51, or is that ship sailed?
We've tried twice to get through to her. No answer.
Okay. I'm happy to bring a motion. I mean, I'm glad to hear that the applicant has had contact with 51, because I do think that is the most impacted neighbor. But I do think this makes sense. I think it's a relatively reasonable application and is, you know, pulling the house out towards the street, and it's keeping some variability in the lot frontages, which I think makes for an interesting streetscape. So I move to approve with no conditions.
All right, do we have a seconder? Larry, all in favor? You have your approval. Thank you, sir. Number 10, 62 Boswell Avenue. Purpose of the application to alter the existing three-story semi-detached dwelling by constructing a one-story rear addition and a two- and three-story rear addition. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. We have a report from Urban Forestry, 6 form letters in support, in opposition from the Ratepayers Association. Mr. Sprague?
Mr. Chair, if I can just jump in quickly. There is also a cover letter from the agent, and again, this morning we did receive a memo from Heritage Planning staff with a condition. Prior to the issuance of a building permit drawings, including plans, elevations, and details, shall be submitted to the satisfaction of the senior manager, Heritage Planning, Urban Design, City Planning, and a heritage permit shall be obtained under the provision of Section 42 of the Ontario Heritage Act.
All right, thank you. Mr. Sprague, are you aware of the heritage condition?
Well, that's fine, and you certainly can put it as a condition, because we've already had extensive communication. I think when we go for a permit, they just want to confirm that what we've done. So I don't have any issues with that, although it's last minute, no problem at all.
Okay.
If I could just give a little bit of background to this application.
Mr. Sprague, could we just get your address for the record?
Oh, yes, correct. Yes, it's Tom Sprague, Sprague and Company Architects, and our address is 156 Duncan Mill Road here in Toronto.
All right, thank you.
Very brief background of this application. What the owners lived in their home now for the past 14 years, and they do now require additional living space that they would that they do require for their family. I should say they've talked extensively with all surrounding neighbors, and all of whom are very, very supportive. And there are the 6 letters, as you mentioned, of support, but of particular importance is the neighbor on the party wall. That's number 6 Boswell. we're very, very supportive of what's being proposed. With respect to the variances before, I'll just comment on a couple. One is with respect to the side yard setback. Basically, we'd like to build in line with this existing house, which happens to be 0.61 meters from the property line. And then also, with respect to the landscaping, it's an existing situation, and in fact, I did write a letter to the effect, which did arrive late, so you may not have the opportunity to look at it, but basically, when they moved in 2007, it was exact same situation, all hard surface. And I should say, in this particular off the laneway, the vast majority of houses have very little soft landscaping. It's mostly parking and patios. So certainly, there's no intention to change the existing situation from what's there. Just in summary, I feel that what's being proposed is appropriate. I feel it's minor, and I think importantly as well, the neighbors are certainly supportive of what's being proposed.
Thank you. Panel, do you have any questions? Any comments? Do we have a motion? Larry?
Sorry, I was having technical difficulties. So there's no one in opposition?
No.
Or speaking in opposition? I did notice in the correspondence that a couple of people did mention the rear landscaping, and I totally get your point about it's an existing condition, but you are in the process of kind of reconstructing the back, and there'll be all kinds of things happening. It sounds like if it's been in since 2007, it's the traditional pavers that don't allow water to percolate through. I'm wondering if it'd be open to replacing those pavers with permeable paving.
I'm speaking on behalf of the owners. I can't really say one way or another. Basically, where we're building the addition is on hard surface, and it's also supporting the car parking at the back. So it is an if they didn't go ahead with the project, they just leave it as is and be status quo. And so to rip up and do that, I think when also many of those houses on that street, if you walk down the laneway, have hard surfaces at the back. It's just the way it is in this part of the city. There's not a lot of soft landscaping. So I think they prefer to leave it as is, to be quite honest with you, yes. Which is the same situation it's been for,
So here.
If I may, just a clarification. I think I just missed part of your point. So the new addition will be built on existing hard surface.
Yes, that's exactly correct. Yeah. So the soft landscaping will remain the same. So
exactly the same. So nothing's going to change as far as soft landscaping is concerned.
No.
Thank you.
But it's what's there. Yes. Yeah. And very similar to as I've said before, but very similar to situations down the laneway.
Yeah, I take it,
on the west of the laneway for that matter as well.
I take it,
And
Mr. Sprague, I take it that these lots on Boswell are very small.
Correct. Yeah, 30 meters long, I think, 32.
Yeah. Okay. So any further questions, comments? We have a motion? Yes, here.
Mr. Chair, I'd be quite happy to bring forward a motion that we approve the application subsequent to having heard the applicant with regard to soft landscaping issues. There are conditions related to forestry, and I believe heritage has a condition as well. So pursuant to those conditions, that we approve the application.
All right, do we have a
Forestry
seconder?
number 2
Yeah.
and heritage.
All right, so Peter, you're seconding the motion? All right, all in favor? You have your approval, sir, thank you. Number 11, 109 Sunnyside Avenue. Purpose of the application is to convert the existing 2.5-story, 2-unit semi-detached dwelling into a 3-unit semi-detached dwelling by constructing a rear deck and rear covered entrance. And with this application, we have material submitted by the applicant and email correspondence from Transportation Services. Mr. Treen?
Yes, I'm here.
Sorry,
hear me?
sorry,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, if I can just jump in again. It's, for this item, there is a 5-signature petition in support of the application.
Okay, that was just filed, you mean?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Treen, could we have your address, please?
Yes, it's 576 Bathurst Street, Toronto.
Okay, thank you. I don't believe we need a presentation from you. This looks pretty straightforward. Panel, do you have any questions? Do we have a motion? Peter?
I'm happy to bring forward a motion for approval. I think the fact that there are no built form variances being requested is the first thing that makes this supportable, and the other 2 variances are extremely minor. And I think the fact that an additional rental unit is being added is a positive thing. So with no negative impacts of this application, I move for approval with no conditions.
Yep. Seconder, Sahir. All in favor? You have your approval, sir. Thank you. Number 12, 339 Boone Avenue. Purpose of this application to construct a 2-story detached laneway suite with a garage at the rear of an existing 2-story detached building. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, email correspondence from planning, and a report from engineering, support from 55 Blome Avenue. Mr. Gom?
Hello?
Yes. Can we
Hi, yes. My name is Ben Gom. I'm both the architect and the owner of the property at 339 Boone Avenue.
Yes. Okay, and you live there, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I don't believe we have any opposition. So I don't believe we need to hear a presentation from you unless you have something
Okay.
to say.
Yeah, well, I'll just say, if we don't need a presentation, I'll just say, you guys did receive a letter of support from 55 Below M, which is on the next, adjacent to the back laneway. But furthermore, I canvassed around and I got full support from 341 Boone, 335 Boone, and 64 Below M Avenue, which are the 3 adjacent properties to our property. So the 2 properties on the northern side adjacent on Boone Avenue, and 64 Below M is the property behind ours. So we're, as you can see on the site plan, we are on 2 laneways. Incidentally, 64 Bloom is actually going to be going to committee of adjustment, I think, next week. And because he's also on 2 laneways, he's going to be asking for the exact same variance. So everybody's very excited about the laneway house projects. And yep, that's it for now.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, panel? Okay. Linda?
Go ahead, Zahir.
Just to mention that there is an engineering note, and it's with regard to some conditions, satisfying conditions.
Yes. Those are the usual laneway conditions. All right, but we have 2 speakers. Linda Newmeyer.
Oh, hello. Yes, sorry, just one sec.
Hi, yeah, I live at 55 Bloem Avenue, as the homeowner and architect mentioned, and I wrote the letter of support, and I'm just joining today to reiterate my support for this project, and we look forward to it going ahead. Be a great addition to the community.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Enrique?
Yes, I am at 335, which is the adjacent house to Mr. Pangong's project at the other side of the laneway. I'm all for it. It can, you know, obviously it'll make a big change to the community, and by all means, my blessings.
Okay, thank you. Panel, any questions of these two supporters? Okay, do we have any comments, or do we have a motion? Yes, Peter.
I'm happy to bring a motion. I think the two variances being requested are as a result of the existing building, and so I think it's not, we're not narrowing the laneway any more than it is, and I think this is being tastefully designed and is sensitive to its neighbors in keeping with the spirit of the laneway suites bylaw. So I move for approval subject to the development engineering conditions.
All right, do we have a seconder? Larry?
Yeah, I'd agree. It is, as we often say, it's heartening to hear, see a proposal that kind of conforms for the vast majority of the requirements for laneway suite, and it is a really, I agree with Peter, it's a really good looking design. So I'll second that.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you. '72 Chester Avenue. The purposes of this application is to alter the 2.5-story detached dwelling by constructing a front porch, a front basement walkout, a rear 2-story addition, a 3rd-story addition, and a 3rd-story rear terrace. In addition, a secondary suite will be created in the basement of the main building, and a 2-story ancillary building containing a 2nd-story laneway suite will be constructed in the rear yard for a total of 3 dwelling units on the lot. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, reports from engineering and urban forestry, 5 form letters in support, and opposition from numerous properties on Jackman and Chester, and that's it. So, Mr. Galbraith.
Hello again.
Hello. So perhaps just for
Sean
the
Galbraith.
Yeah.
I was going to do that. Sean Galbraith, planner here on behalf of the application, 1 Yonge Street, Unit 1801.
Okay. We have some opposition. Let us have your presentation, Mr. Galbraith.
If I could ask for my cover letter be put on the screen. So what is proposed is to enlarge the existing 2.5-story house, to construct a 2-story rear addition and add a partial 3rd floor, and add a 2-story laneway suite. The structure of the laneway suite itself does not trigger any variances. There's one variance regarding the mid-lot soft landscaping, but it's a very small variance. The proposal will have the 3 stories above grade will be 1 unit, and then there will be a secondary suite accessed via a new front walkout. And so these will be 3 units in close proximity to Chester subway station, where we want to have new units, and particularly new rental units. If I could ask for that, there we go. So in the blue, it is sort of shaded in. That's the mass of the existing house. And for example, for the height variance, that little orange part at the top, that's the only part of the roof that is subject to the height variance. It's a very small amount. This project was originally before the Committee of Adjustment earlier this year, and it was rejected, and So they redesigned it in several significant ways to make it hopefully more palatable. First, they changed the ground floor of the laneway suite to make it less impactful on adjacent trees. They increased the rear yard soft landscaping from 75% to 83%, where 85 is required. They lowered the height of the sidewalls from 9.88 down to 9.07 meters. They eliminated the building depth variance entirely, and so the building depth of this project is permitted as of right. They also reduced the FSI a little bit from 0.96 to 0.90, and that variance is entirely in keeping with approved FSI variances in the area. And then there was also a parking space size variance that they eliminated as well. One parking space will be retained on the property in the first floor of the laneway suite. Overall, I think it's a great project, and it's where we need to put additional units relative to transit. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, Mr. Gilbert, this is just curiosity. It doesn't really have anything to do with the variances, but who would use the garage in the laneway suite? The owner of the property or the tenant in the laneway suite?
I don't actually know the answer to that question. That's a good question. I think it's the owner of the main unit.
Okay.
I think it's the owner of the main unit, but I don't know that for sure.
Yeah. Does anybody have any relevant questions?
I welcome all questions.
Okay, thank you. Let us move on to Lola Bratty. Okay, Duncan Harvey.
And Harvey.
Mr. Harvey?
You're muted.
You can hear me now, I believe.
Yes, we can.
And do you have my wife, Jacqueline, separately listed, or are we sharing a block of time here?
No, we hear from one person from each, from one address.
All right, then I'm speaking for 74 Chester Avenue. We're the immediate neighbors to the north, and we objected to the application back in February. I sent a detailed letter with this current application, and I would like to look at figure 1 from the letter, please.
Are you running the time? Said figure 1, presumably a picture.
I don't know whose letter that is, but it's not mine.
You're referring to figure 1 in the letter that you submitted yourself?
Yes.
Thank you.
I did submit a drawing that had it the right way around, but go down a bit. You're seeing 3 elevations beside each other. Thank you. Starting on the left, that's the house as it stands. I've added some figures for human scale to emphasize what we're concerned about. And I think what's happening is we're going from bad to worse. And if we look at the existing elevation on the left, the application in the middle, which was rejected, and the application on the right, the current application on the right. And what is happening is a complete removal of any kind of relevance to the form of the street. And in addition, what I'm concerned about is by taking away the density at the front of the house and the ability to add density on top of the existing porch roof on the 2nd and 3rd floors, they are effectively forcing the density to the back of the house. And that's where it is causing us such trouble in terms of shadowing and looming over our house and our garden. So if we move to the front, and also, of course, that it's not permitted to have the entrance to a basement suite from the front, and where it belongs is off the back, and I'll show you where that belongs in a minute. If we could look at the rear now, if that could go, yeah, you can see it, the existing house. Number 72 is in the middle, number 74, my house, is on the left, and a neighbor to the right. And the existing has a setback where a stairway down to a basement suite just naturally fits. And that would also prevent the looming high sidewall, which we see in the proposed sketch in the lower drawing. These are accurate shadows cast at the equinox, and you can see the impact it's having on our deck and our garden, let alone what it's going to be like in the winter when we'll get no sun at all. So we're very concerned about that. Then finally, if we look at the side, yes, they have reduced the sidewall a small, or you can stay with that one there. No, go up, please. They have reduced the sidewall a tiny amount, but the point being that high sidewall runs for the full depth of the building. Again, creating this looming sidewall that we face to the south. So it's shading effects, and it also we rely on sun for passive solar heating. You can see the dormers to our house on our third floor. We took an attic and we turned it into a third floor quite comfortably without having to do such very high sidewalls. So I know it's possible, and I'm an architect myself, and that brings the point that we're most concerned that the neighbors have never spoken to us, refused to meet with us to discuss the concerns of the neighbors. There are at least 10 or more letters of objection that have been filed with this application, again, because neighbors have not been spoken to or consulted. So in summary, I would just say again that it's fundamentally a greedy proposal, and it's been designed for maximum bulk, not for maximum utility. And I think it's certainly possible to do better when we consider the addition of the laneway suite. In addition to this, we have density that is more than double the existing. And they expect these 3 households to be able to share this handkerchief-sized garden between them, and it's just not going to be possible. So the residents, in effect, are going to have no private outdoor space themselves. Thank you.
So, Mr. Harvey, I just wanted to ask you, that third building in your mock-up, was that the next? Is that 70?
There's a building to the side.
Is that 70?
Yes.
Okay.
That's my wife, yes.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll accept that. All right, panel, do you have any questions of Mr. Harvey? No. Okay, let's move on to Mr. Cascone.
Sorry, I would just quickly like to voice our objection to the proposal for the reasons
All right,
that
sir,
have been
sir, would you give us your name and your address first?
Yes, it's Bernardo Cascone, 80 Chester Avenue. And we're just reiterating our objection. A letter was submitted by
thank you. Panel, do you have any questions?
Just a
Yes.
quick one, Mr. Chair. Mr. Cascone, just looking at a Google satellite image, is it correct that your house, your neighbor's house, extends a fair distance beyond yours in the back?
My neighbor to the south extends about 3 or 4 feet beyond our addition, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further questions? No? Mr. or Mrs. Siomos? So there were other people? How many? Okay. Oh, so you don't know whether they're here for this one? Okay. All right.
Hi there. I just unmuted someone that's called in using the phone number 647-200. Could you unmute yourself and then tell us your name and then what file you're here for? Oh, they hung up.
Guess they're not here for a file.
Hi, I have another caller in with the phone number 416. 416-417. Can you tell us your name and what file you're here for?
Yeah, this is Marvin Singer. I'm here for the hearing on 8 Dunlow Road.
Okay. Thank you. We'll get back to you, sir.
Yes, fine.
All right. Mr. Galbraith?
Thank you. So a few items. First, we circulated our own notice to the community ahead of the public notice, and we've had a number of conversations with the owners of 74 to the north. I'm not sure why it was said that we haven't spoken with them. We haven't. We have fundamental differences, unfortunately, but we did speak with them to try and understand their concerns and see what could be done. The comment first was that we should add density above the porch roof. That would create a much more significant imposition on the streetscape, and it would be much less in keeping with the streetscape, I think, instead of doing a third floor and having a porch in front. It's not really that common to create that big of an additional front yard setback variance to shift massing forward on a lot. I don't think that would be an appropriate response. There was a comment that the basement entrance should be at the side or the rear of the property. I just have a fundamental disagreement with that. I think as a matter of equity, it is a good idea to have people in basement suites having an address on the street. It helps normalize, frankly, additional rental units and the appearance of them in neighborhoods. I don't think just because you live in a basement means you can't have a front door. The building depth at 70 Chester is already in there's a similar depth to what is proposed. And the proposed building depth is as of right. It's 17 meters. There's no variance triggered by it. And if all they did was do 2 stories and a full third floor roof, basically it would be a 0.64 variance instead of, it's almost exactly as of right, and it would have more of an impact from that third floor roof than it does with the step back at the third floor. I also note that the neighbors' dormers, if they were new, they would trigger a wall height variance. I would point out that the density in the laneway suite is not counted as part of the property, and I think that there is sufficient space for outdoor amenity space for the main unit and the other users of the property. There was a comment that this goes against the single-family nature of the neighborhood. Again, I think all neighborhoods can use more rental housing, especially small, modest rental housing like basement suites and laneway suites, especially where they're in close proximity to transit. I think it's entirely appropriate and it's permitted and encouraged by the official plan and by the zoning bylaw. I think that was all of the comments. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, Mr. Galbraith, one question. Are there basement entrances on, other basement entrances on the street from the front?
There aren't many, but 49 Chester was recently approved for a front basement entrance, the same variances as is proposed here.
Okay. So that's the only one?
That's the only one that I know of. The variance is for modifying a front wall. And so if you had a basement entrance that faced a side yard instead of a front yard, because it was tucked under the porch facing sideways, it actually wouldn't trigger that variance for the basement front entrance. Only because the door faces the street is that variance triggered.
Okay. Panel, do you have any?
Kind of a weird provision of the bylaw.
Yeah. Any questions, panel? All right. Do we have comments or a motion?
Oh, sorry, Peter. You want to go ahead?
You go ahead, Larry. I'll go after you.
Yeah, we'll probably be saying similar things. First of all, I mean, this is an application that was before committee in the past, and the applicant has done kind of what we would expect an applicant to do, is go back and make modifications to try and address some community concerns. Whether they've addressed all of them or not, I guess that's not clear, or it is clear. There's still a number of people that are opposing this application, but I think the design is better than the one that was brought forward previously. I think the massing at the rear, as the applicant noted, is what makes sense. I think the overriding consideration for me is this is a 5-minute walk to a subway station, and it is an area in a neighborhood that I do think we should be supporting additional density and additional rental accommodation. I get the adjacent neighbors concerned about proximity and shading, but there are several homes along that area that have gone back an equal amount. So I don't think it's outrageous in terms of what the applicant is proposing. And I don't think it would be, if you go down the street towards the school, there are similar homes recently constructed. So it's not, in my view, out of character with that community. But again, I'll just go back to the overriding concern. My own consideration is a 5-minute walk to the subway. These are the kinds of developments that we're going to have to start supporting.
I agree with all of Larry's comments. I think I would add, I remember this being a difficult application last time it came, and I think it warranted a lot of discussion, and it's still not, it's still difficult in its in parts, but I do think that there have been significant improvements to it. The depth was a real issue last time, and I know that's been curtailed, and yeah, there is a wall in the backyard that will have impacts on the neighbor, but there's no depth variance being requested, and I mean I think that's just part of the evolution of a neighborhood. I think that the materials shown by the applicant, those graphics were very helpful in terms of comparing what's existing and what's proposed. And I think the final thing that I'd say would be just the variances themselves have been worked at they're quite small in and of themselves, and I think this is a supportable application.
Yeah, I found that, and the reason I asked the question as to whether that third building on the diagram was 70, Chester, is that 72 is now proposing to move their house back to and line up with 70. So, you know, if you've got one house on one side that's far back and a house on the other side that isn't, what do? Do you go back to the one that's far back, or do you stop in the middle? So I think it's reasonable to line up with the existing house that's goes far back. So, any
I'm
other-
happy to make a motion, Chair, if, unless Tahir, do you have any?
No, I concur with all of you actually, and I think the unfortunate part, of course, is it is evolutionary in terms of the depth of the homes that are now being constructed as our density in the city changes, and also the use of the properties beginning to change. I also noted that engineering had no comment. It looks like whatever conditions they may have had in the past may have been resolved. I believe there's a forestry condition, forestry number 2, I think. Sorry, forestry 1 and 2. And I don't see any other conditions being attached by any other body within the city. So I'd be willing to support a motion to.
They have the standard engineering for the laneway suite, right?
I didn't have a note, Larry, so but there should be a standard engineering condition.
You have to have a municipal address, don't you?
Yeah, I think other things, they have to, you know, line up with the fire requirements, etc.
Maybe we just go to committee for a second, just ask the applicant. He's very experienced in these areas. Is there no condition for a municipal address on the laneway suite?
So ECS had 2 conditions. So one is for a municipal address, and then one is for to show the slope of the walkway to the sidewalk. Make sure that it has a 2 to 4% grade. But
Right.
that was it.
Okay.
And there were other conditions that you guys satisfied as part of the redoing of the application, so that's fine. So
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
I'm happy to move. Again, I always like seeing laneway suite applications with, you know, minimal or no variances, so that's great. So I'll move approval of this application subject to forestry 1 and 2 and the standard engineering conditions, which are contained, I think, in the memo, which I frankly don't know what the date of it was.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Here, all in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you. Number 14377 St. John's Road. Purpose of this application is to convert the existing 2-story, 1-unit detached dwelling into a 3-story, 2-unit detached dwelling by constructing a rear 3-story addition, a full 3rd-story addition, and a rear ground floor deck and a side basement walkout. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant and opposition from a property on Willard, one on St. John's, and one on Windermere. Peshman Sania.
Mr. Chair, sorry.
Good afternoon.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, to interrupt. Just looking at the supplementary package for this afternoon. We also have 6 form letters in support signed by the owners and occupants on St. John's Road. And there is correspondence in interest concern from the owners of 379 St. John's Road.
Thank you. Mr. Sania?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and panels. So I'm Peshman Sainia from Rigid Frame Structural Engineers and Architects. The address 250 Consumers Road, Unit 705. The proposal comes from for the existing condition that we want to have some kind of demolition within the existing envelope of the house, and turning the basement to a rental unit, which of course at the end of the day it would help for the owner and for the society, for the use of rental housing. And basically the existing walls would be extended up to support the third floor, and at the back we have a space for the mud room. This is the existing, and we will turn that, we will bring that area as part of the proposal. So basically the footprint of the house will stay the same. In regards, nothing will change as far as the soft landing is landing, and the height of the building, the proposed even would be less than the existing, less than the permitted. Yes, so we think there wouldn't be any negative impact, keeping with the character of the neighborhood, and the general intent of the proposal would be within the official plan of the city of Toronto.
All right, thank you, sir. Panel, do you have any questions? No questions. Louisa Celli?
You hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hold on.
Where'd she go? Miss Celli? Okay. Mary Young?
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Young. I live at 653 Willard. I am kitty corner to the house on St. John's Road, and I thank you for the opportunity to present my feedback with regards to the proposed changes to 377 St. John's. In general, I'm supportive to home renovations, especially where the changes are in alignment with the character of the neighborhood. I'm here today to voice my concerns with the plan changes as it directly impacts my sight lines. My concerns are as follows, and I have 4 of them. I'm not an architect, and I sort of did as best as I could to look at the drawings that were posted, so may not be 100% accurate, but here it goes. The current building is already much larger than the homes in the area. It juts out further from the front and the back, and from my yard, I have a significant portion of my view is of the current structure. With the planned renovation, I fear that this will be the only view that I have. So that's number 1. Number 2, it appears that the proposed building will have a greater footprint, thus further limiting the amount of green space. Right now, the front yard isn't all grass because it sticks out further, and there is like a little patio in the front. So my concern is also that currently the laneway doesn't have any sewage drainage, no catch basins where the house is and between where that house is and my house. I'm right on the lane. And there's already significant flooding in the spring, which at times presents risks for both cars and pedestrians. The city's mandatory downspout disconnection program was aimed at decreasing the load on our sewage system and by having rainwater flow into the ground through the disconnection. I believe that this proposed build will have the opposite effect, increasing the flow into the sewage system and potentially more flooding at the base of the lane where I am. Number three, by allowing this renovation to proceed, we'll be setting a precedent that may alter the charm of this neighborhood. This area is primarily two-story homes, has a very nice small town feel. This is the small town feel that you don't often find in the center of a major city. So I have a concern there. Fourthly, according to the letter I received, the request has 6 deviations from the zoning bylaws. I feel that these deviations are significant rather than minor changes. A prime example of this is with regard to the first request, which was bylaw 569-2013, which states an addition or exterior alteration to an existing building to accommodate secondary suite is permitted if it does not alter or adds to a front wall or a roof that faces the street. According to page A6 of the proposed changes, the existing height of the house currently is 25 feet and 7 3/4 inches. And on page A15, the proposed height will be 35 feet, 11 and a half. That's an increase of 10 feet, which is significant, especially for me that looks onto that house already. The last request, bylaw 569-2013, states that a minimum of 50% of the rear yard must be soft landscaping. In this case, the rear yard soft landscaping area will be equal to 40%. However, the plan states that there's a desire to install a swimming pool in the backyard. And I realize that this is going to be presented at another time for approval, but I don't understand how that 40% soft landscaping can be achieved and maintained for the long term. In summary, the approvals sought from this committee appear to be major, not minor. The changes proposed are incompatible with the surrounding homes and will be setting a terrible precedent, which will have significant impact on the community, especially if more homes are built to this scale. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
All right, thank you. Any questions, panel? Okay, so do you have Ms. Shelley? Okay. Ms. Shelley?
Hello.
Hello?
Yes. This is Ms. Kelly calling. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Is it okay for me to speak?
Yes, please give us your address.
Yes, so my address is 844 Windermere Avenue.
Can we have your comments, please? I think she hung up again. Ms. Shelley, are you still there?
Hello?
Yes?
Can you hear me? I'm having a really hard time, and I really would like to speak about this, my objections.
All right, we can hear
Are you
you.
able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you. I am the owner and resident of 844 Windermere Avenue, located on the southeast side of St. John's Road. The back of my home and my backyard face the back of the property of 377 St. John, specifically their garage and a very mature tall backyard tree. I have lived in my home for the past 14 years, and as a homeowner, I appreciate other homeowners' desires to invest in their property to make improvements that enhance their living space. There is no opposition to that on my end. However, upon reviewing the plans shared with the committee by the owners of the property, and in reviewing the variances sought, I have some serious concerns, which are as follows. The variances sought for this project are not minor. First of all, they're seeking 6 variances to the existing bylaws, and these variances touch on every aspect of a structure build, from height exceptions, length exceptions, force place index exceptions, soft landscaping permission, encroachment exceptions, and altering of a front wall of a roof facing the street. On top of all these variances, there is a plan to remove a private mature tree in the backyard and the addition of a pool. Hence, this project plans to alter the property at every level. Also, some of the requested variances are truly not minor in nature, but represent a significant ask. Specifically, variance number 4, which is seeking to increase the floor space index from 0.8 times the area of the lot to 1.12 times. This and the proposed rear parameters identified in the project site data plan on page 3 of 21 to go from the bylaw maximum of 8.77 meters to 16.9 meters equals to a 40% increase from what is allowed by city bylaws. That is not minor indeed. Another minor variance request that is not minor is the number 5 variance request to have exterior stairs providing pedestrian access to the building to encroach into a building setback by 4 times the allowable encroachment parameters. A quadrupling request is not minor. And variance request number 6 to reduce the soft landscaping of the yard from a minimum of 50%, which is currently identified at 59.4 square meters, to a requested 47.2 square meters, is also not minor. It's actually a 20% decrease. As such, I am very much concerned about how all of these requested variances will impact the character of the neighborhood, shadowing, privacy, and drainage on the nearby properties and on my very own, which is the smallest home in this block of houses, and it is already surrounded by taller properties to the north and south on both sides. Request for variance number 2, which seeks to extend the height of the exterior wall facing a side lot line, is also 14% more height. Also, it is greatly concerning to me that the approval of the significant variances will set precedent for future application proposals. The 2 immediately adjacent neighbors to the west of 377 St. John, specifically 375 and 373, are each owned by gentlemen who are in their late 80s to 90s, and at some stage in the future, the ownership of these homes will change. What will stop the new owners from seeking the same variances to expand their build structure to the rear of the property if these particular requested variances are approved? That would have a dramatic impact on my own property, bringing about a significant and distressing loss of privacy and shadowing for me. My other concern is related to how these proposed changes to the increased hardscaping to the rear yard by 20% may affect the integrity of the drainage to the street, as softscaping elements are essential for adequate stormwater runoff. How will a reduced soft landscaping area impact the drainage of the property, which will now be even more significant with a new 3-story addition? Zoning bylaws help control stormwater management, reduce surface runoff, and offset the Herbert Eat Island effect. How will this drainage impact the flow of water to the alleyway at the back of the property, which already has a water flow issue that I have been dealing with the city for a long time, as detailed in my letter sent to you under concern number 4. The entire alleyway only has one drainage point on Windermere Avenue from end to end, with water draining from the garages, often pooling by the property line of my home, which is unable to flow to the street due to a sloping issue. This problem becomes very prominent during significant rainstorms and gets really bad in the winter when accumulated snow from the entire alleyway needs to drain to that single point on Windermere.
Miss Shelley, your time is actually up. Could you wrap up, please?
Yes, okay, then I'm just going to ask that you kindly review my other concerns as highlighted. And I just wanted to mention that even though there are letters of approval, 4 out of 6 of these approval letters are actually 5 blocks away from 377 St. John, and they would not be impacted in any manner by this construction. The last point that I want to make is the use of the alleyway by machinery to do the demolition. This
We
alleyway
have,
is not
Ms. Shelley, we have no mandate with respect to building. We only deal with the zoning variances.
Okay, well, the zoning variances, then I think I have highlighted my concerns, especially in relation to the size and the fact of the expansion to the rear.
All right, thank you very
so much
much.
for listening, and I hope you will take my concerns that have been highlighted in my letter with photos under consideration.
All right, thank you. Any questions, panel? All right. Mladen Veron Easy. Okay. Mr. Sania.
go point by point with the concerns of the neighbors and address each of them. So the first one, it was about the shape of the proposal. Basically, the shape of the proposal is some kind of improvement of the existing shape. Meaning, right now we have a existing mudroom at the back and a porch. If we look at the site plan, it will show that we have an existing porch which is 4 feet depth, and right beside that there is a porch. So the existing house will follow the same line, and basically there is no extension at the back, and we are building right at the existing area. About the height and again shape, there is already an existing third floor, but we are increasing the height of the adjacent wall to support the new roof, which it provides a new space for third floor. And about the flooding, that there was one concern, because I am myself in the construction as well. Typically the flooding of the neighborhood is because some neighbors, they pump or they bring the rainwater into the sewage system, which is based on the city of Toronto's regulation, is illegal. And for this house, definitely we will use some pump and we will follow the regulations. So definitely it wouldn't impact any negative or concern to the neighbors. And for the height, again, it was a concern. The building height, the permitted building height is 11 meter, and our proposal is 10.95, so a little bit even less than that. For the shadings, we prepared the neighbor to the west had a little bit of concern regarding the shading of this proposal. So we prepared a sun shadow calculation, and it happened a couple of days ago. And based on that, at 7:30 a.m. in the morning, we will get a little bit of shade at the rear back of the neighbor. That's all. And I believe she sent us which it is 379 St. John's Road, which she sent us a support letter in that regard. Is there anything I can address, or anything remaining?
Are you finished, Mr. Sania?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Panel, do you have any questions? Yes, Sahir. You're on mute. Sahir. Yeah, go ahead, Sahir.
I'm sorry. Just a couple of questions. I was just looking at drawing A6. The current height of the building is 25 feet?
Yes, 25 feet, 8 inches almost,
yeah.
Yes. Say 26, yes.
And the new structure is 35 feet, is that correct? A15?
And the new structure, 35 feet, yes.
What's allowed?
11 meter is permitted based on the zoning bylaw.
Sorry, I'll have to convert that one. I don't.
Okay, it's almost same thing. So 11 meter is almost because 35 feet almost.
Okay. So this is with the new building height would be within what's allowed.
Yes, you are right. That's why we didn't get any notice for that one or any.
Oh. Thank you.
No problem.
Any further questions? Larry?
Just a quick one. I thought I heard the applicant say that 379 has written in support. I just wanted to confirm, is that the letter that we have in our package? Or did 379 submit something subsequent to that? There's a letter from
Victoria.
Victoria, yes. Is that the one you're referring to?
Yes, that's the one. Yes.
Okay, she asked a series of questions, I think, more than anything.
Yes. Yes. Her concern was about the shadowing, and we sent her some kind of calculations or modeling for sun shadow area, and she told us yesterday we heard from her that now she's convinced, and she sent a supporting letter for this proposal.
Yeah, I'm not sure we have that, but that's helpful to know.
Okay.
All right. Any further questions? We have comments? Do we have a motion?
I don't mind starting off. I think this is it's a reasonable application, I think. It does stand out more than what is in the immediate area. I think that's not really arguable, but I think the fact that the absolute height that's being pursued is allowed, that gives me some comfort from that. And the fact that they're staying to their existing footprint, for the most part, is, I think goes a long way to kind of getting rid of some of the negative influences that could happen as a result of this. So just basically going up 3/4 of a story is, I think it's supportable. So if my colleagues don't have anything else to add, I'll go ahead and move a motion for approval with no conditions.
Sahir, you support, and you seconded? All right, all in.
That motion, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you. Well, we're now moving to the 3:30 list. I think it's appropriate to take 5 or 10 minutes. 5 minutes?
Sure, 5 minutes works.
Okay. should start. Sahir isn't here, but we do have a quorum, so he'll come in. The next item is number 15. Okay, next item is number 1566 Edgewood Avenue. Purpose of the application to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling containing 5 residential dwelling units by constructing a front two-story addition with a second-story balcony, a rear two-story addition, a second-story rear deck, and a rear rooftop deck with access from the north side exterior stairway. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant, email correspondence from Ravine and Natural Feature Protections, reports from Urban Forestry, support from 2 properties on Edgewood and 1 property on Robbins Avenue. And in addition, we have received recently 5 photographs and opposition from 62 Edgewood Avenue. Julios Funtes.
Yes, can everyone hear us okay?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. We have your address, please.
Yes, so my name is Julio Cifuentes, 145 Birmingham Street in Etobicoke. I'm the architect and the authorized agent for the owner.
Okay.
So the application address is 66 Edgewood Avenue. It's an existing 2-story, 5-dwelling building. The building has an existing open porch at the front on the east side of the property, an existing rear enclosed addition on the west side of the property. The owner is seeking to enclose the existing front porch so that the residents can use it as a mudroom in the winter months. And we're also proposing to add a 3rd level deck that is 15 square meters in area. And it is being proposed so that all 5 residents can use it as a shared amenity space. So the 3 requested variances are, the first, max required front yard setback is to be the average of the abutting dwellings, which is 11.86 meters. The altered dwelling will have a front yard setback of 6.62 meters. This is a technical variance, as the existing condition will not change. That is an existing front porch, which is simply being enclosed. And to maintain the transparency of that porch, the owner has agreed to use glazing so as to not disturb the character of that existing front porch. The second requested variance, the maximum required permitted depth with detached dwelling is 17 meters. The altered detached dwelling will have a depth of 20.8 meters. Again, this is a technical variance that is triggered by the fact that the existing rear wall of the existing rear addition was not structurally sound, so it had to be removed. It's an existing condition that will not change, and the existing massing and footprint of the building will remain intact. Variance number 3, the level of the platform located at or above the 2nd story of the building is not permitted to be higher than the level of the floor of the story from which it gains access. The proposed platform on the roof is higher than the level of the floor of the story from which it gains access. It gains access through a set of stairs accessible through the 2nd level at the rear of the property. So here we applied the 4 test to assess the merits of the design feature. Number 1, it is minor in nature, as it will not have any negative effects on the privacy or sunlight of its neighbors. Both adjacent neighbors to the north, 70 and 74 Edgewood Avenue, have upper story rear decks that are approximately at the same level as the one that we are proposing. We have submitted photographs to the committee to that effect. Number 2, it's an appropriate change. It will not negatively affect the building, the site, or the neighborhood lands, as the rear deck structure will at most times not be visible by the neighbors or residents, and it certainly won't affect the streetscape. It meets the general intent of the zoning bylaw. The deck will maintain the existing massing of the building and maintain the appropriate relationships between the buildings while adding an amenity space for all 5 dwelling units. And number 4, it meets the general intent of the official plan. The proposed structure respects and reinforces the neighborhood character by providing a communal amenity area for all residents. Thank you.
Yeah. Panel, any questions? No. Okay, let's move on to Tricia Shaw.
I will also add that the one letter of objection has now officially been withdrawn from 62 Edgewood, as the resident and our client, the owner, have come to an amicable resolution.
Okay.
And an email has been sent into that effect to the Committee of Adjustments email.
All right, thank you. So Tricia Shaw, we can't get hold of her? Yeah, find out who they are.
Hi, I have someone logged in on their computer under 103 Mac P. Could you state your name and what file you're here for? Could you might be muted on your end.
Hi there. Yes, sorry, we're way early on before our hearing. It's 103 McPherson. It's Paul and Natalie.
All right, thank you. We'll get back to you, sir.
Yeah, sorry about that. We're enjoying the proceedings, so.
All right, thank you. We ought to get paid like entertainers. Okay, so you can't, we haven't got Tricia Shaw? All right, so, okay, we don't have any opposition. Do you have any questions of Mr. Cifuentes or comments, or do we have a motion? Larry?
Chair, can I just ask, just the fencing around the rooftop deck, is that clear glass or opaque, or what is your, it looks like from the renderings that it's clear glass.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a transparent or a translucent material, so as to not affect the visible mass of the structure.
Okay, I didn't see that on your drawings. That's the only thing. So, would you be okay if we put a condition that railing is translucent?
Yeah, we'd be okay with that.
Okay.
All right. Zahir?
From forestry, dated April 19th in our package, and this particular one has recommendations 2 and 3. The recommendation under number 2 is a condition and 2 recommendations. So the recommendation suggests urban forestry requests deferral of the Committee of Adjustment application to fully address the impacts to a bylaw protected tree. And number 3, urban forestry requests denial of the Committee of Adjustment application due to the impacts of a bylaw protected tree. I'm not sure if these have been addressed, or is this current? Has this been superseded by any other correspondence?
So I can answer on our end. I think urban forestry misunderstood the application, and I think what triggered that misunderstanding was the fact that there was the letters addition in the notice of hearing. But as I said, the existing footprint of the building is not changing, so no trees are going to be injured or removed.
So there's no update from forestry with regard to the application?
I'd say is just the date. So the original one that you're referring to here looks like it's April, and then there's an August report which just has condition number 2 in it. So can we infer from that forestry was satisfied otherwise?
I suspect so. And yeah, I think they've just got condition number 2 in the August document. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so do we have comments, or do we have a motion? Peter?
I don't mind bringing a motion for approval. I think this is a very tasteful renovation, and there's no change to the footprint. These are nice and good-sized units, and I think it's going to be an improvement to the street. So I move approval subject to urban forestry condition number 2.
Seconder?
Can I just make
Yes,
a
Larry?
friendly amendment to that, Peter, just about the material on the railing for the rooftop deck?
Pardon me, yes, that's right, Larry. Which side is that facing? South?
I didn't see a problem with putting it all the way around, frankly. Let me just look at the pins here.
And would that just be for the rooftop deck? I'm just trying to get the plans back up.
Yeah, I am too.
I mean, maybe it's simplest if we just say the north and south. I don't really have a problem with leaving the rear-facing ones transparent, but maybe requiring translucent screening for the north and south-facing balconies.
And there is a balcony on the second floor too.
On the second, and on the first too, a little one.
Yeah, it's a deep lot, and in behind there's just a parkette, right? So I think you're right.
Okay.
So I'm fine with that.
Okay, so pardon me, that condition would be that all north and south facing deck walls be translucent, or whichever the regular kind of terminology we use for that, to a height of 1.5 meters.
So Peter, do you think you would need it on the first floor deck, which can't be overlooking anything?
I don't know if you'd really need it, but more just out of a uniformity perspective, I'd say that. But if you have a preference, I'm fine with removing the first floor one.
Yeah, I think it's unnecessary on the first floor. So the
Okay, sure,
motion
so-
is just for the second and third floor decks? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Seconder, Larry? All in favor? Have your approval. Thank you, sir. Number 1627 Corley Avenue. The purpose of the application is to alter the existing two-story detached dwelling by constructing a two-story rear addition and a first-story rear deck. With this application, we have material submitted by the applicant. We have email correspondence from Planning and Transportation Services. Yeah. Okay. Pavlo Turco.
Present. Yes, Pablo Turco, I'm the architect and authorized agent for the property owner.
Perhaps you could speak into your microphone, sir. I'm having trouble hearing you.
I'll do my best.
That's better.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, we can. So can we
so
have your
Pablo
name
Turco, and
and
I'm an
address
agent
for
for
the
the property
record,
owner.
please? Can we have your name and address for the record?
Yes, 10 Plastics Avenue, Etobicoke.
Okay, thank you. I don't think we need a presentation from you unless you have, do you have anything to say to the panel before we go into committee?
As of an hour ago, there's no objection. Actually, there's a verbal support from both neighbors, and planning is in support of the application. Transportation issues Minor variances are technical, and it's a very subtle expansion of the existing house. I seek approval from the committee.
All right. Thank you, sir. Any questions, panel? Do we have comments or a motion? Sahir?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think I'd like to bring forward a motion to approve. I don't see any, I think transportation had something, but I'm not mistaken. It's just a recommendation and not a condition. So I would like to bring forward a motion to approve the application as is and request that the applicant take into account the recommendation that transportation has presented.
All right. Do we have a seconder? Peter, all in favor? Have your approval, sir. Thank you. Number 17.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I may, we need to change over our YouTube to the next,
Pardon?
we need to change over our YouTube stream to the next time. So if you don't mind, we're just going to end the YouTube stream. It'll just take about a minute.
When you're going to do it now?
Right now, yeah.
Okay. How long?
It'll take about a minute.
Okay. We got a minute.
For those of you who are watching on the YouTube stream, we're just going to be changing over to the PM part 3. So the stream is going to end and you can change over to the PM part 3.